No, he's completely wrong. I mean, if he's being honest, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Remember, when I was on your program before the Federal Reserve made the mistake of raising rates, I said that three things were going to happen in the markets if the Fed raised rates. That the U.S. stock market would go way down, that gold would go up, and that the dollar would go down. And now all three of those forecasts have come true. In fact, gold is now about 9% higher than it was the day after the Fed raised rates. You reported earlier the dollar is at the lowest it's been since October. And the stock market, I believe, is already in a bear market. And in fact, I think the U.S. economy is in a recession right now. And I think this recession is going to last longer, and it's going to be even deeper than the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So we're going to have to rename that recession because this one is going to be greater.
Bob, do you agree?
Well, it's hard to see why it could be greater. Household balance sheets, which was really the problem before, and all of the mortgage-backed securities that were based on poor household balance sheets. You know, households are in much better shape. Banks have been recapitalized. Private debt is far lower than it was before. Job growth is fantastic. We had a record car sales last year. Housing activity is still really good. Consumer average wages are going to hit 3% this year. They're already rising at the fastest rate of the cycle, and the real incomes with the drop in food and energy prices are soaring. You know, we've never had a recession from a plunge in oil prices, only because of a spike. Yeah. That's not happening now.
Yeah, you know, that's
Peter,
that's all pure fantasy. You know, the only reason that jobs are being created is because so many Americans now have 2 or 3 part-time jobs. We're destroying real jobs, goods-producing, full-time jobs, and we're replacing them with service sector jobs, low-paying, temporary, part-time work. That's the real story. Yes, we have a car sales going up because there's an auto bubble. You know, we have a bubble in auto finance. That's going to burst. So this recovery is a fantasy, and we have a lot more debt. The national debt has doubled under the Obama administration. The national debt just went through $19 trillion. We have a lot more debt now than we had 8 years ago. The Federal Reserve has a huge balance sheet full of toxic debt. It's got, what, a $4.5 trillion balance sheet. Corporations are levered up like never before. And, you know, households, they don't have the real income. I mean, that's why you have so many people living with their parents, because they can't afford to move out. This has been a decimation in the U.S. economy, and people are just looking at some of these superficial numbers and not looking beneath the surface to see what a disaster the Fed has made of this economy. They took all the problems that we had in 2008 and made them much worse.
Okay, so Peter, here's the thing, right? I mean, how do we get ourselves out of this old rut that we've dug ourselves in? You've got the Davos consensus, or the elite. They just wrapped up a little while ago saying that, look, the way forward is for central banks to continue stepping on the pedal, go even deeper and further into this whole QE experiment. Everybody, I mean, they're leaning on everybody to do that, the ECB, BOJ, except for the Fed, because they're going the other way. How hard is it going to be for the Fed to backtrack?
The Fed is only the Fed is only pretending to go the other way. I said this on your program, that if the Fed actually raised rates, the next thing they would do is cut them. You know, everybody wants to pretend the Fed is going to raise rates because the U.S. is supposedly the only example that quantitative easing actually works. But it didn't work. It was a complete failure. But everybody wants to pretend it was a success, so they want to pretend that we're going to be raising rates. We're not. We're going to go back to zero. In fact, we're going to go negative. We're probably going to be lower than Europe or Japan, and we're going to back up the truck with QE4, which is going to be bigger than QE3, but none of it works. All of this is counterproductive. It's all like throwing gasoline on a fire. It's all this cheap money that is the biggest problem in the global economy. The answer is not more cheap money. The answer is to reverse course. We need higher interest rates, not lower interest rates, and governments need to balance their budgets, not keep spending more money and expecting central banks to monetize it.